Welcome to Quizmania, the ultimate destination for fun and learning. Are you ready to take on the landmark Supreme Court cases in the USA Challenge? Today, we've got 60 thrilling quiz questions to test your knowledge of the groundbreaking decisions that shaped American law and history. Get ready to dive into this exciting journey of discovery. Feel free to pause the video if you need extra time to think. No rush, just pure fun and fascinating insights. Before we jump in, make sure to subscribe to Quizmania and hit the bell icon so you'll be the first to know about our latest quizzes and challenges. We've got plenty more exciting content coming your way, so stay tuned. Once you've completed the quiz, let us know how many questions you got right in the comments below. We'd love to hear your score. Let's get started and make history fun. 1. What was the ruling in the landmark Supreme Court case Marbury v. Madison, 1803? A. Judicial review is unconstitutional. B. The Supreme Court has the authority to declare laws unconstitutional. C. The president cannot be sued by the public. D. States can veto federal laws. Answer. B. The Supreme Court has the authority to declare laws unconstitutional. Explanation. This case established the principle of judicial review, giving the Supreme Court the power to declare laws and actions unconstitutional. 2. Which case established the separate but equal doctrine that justified racial segregation? A. Brown v. Board of Education. B. Plessy v. Ferguson. C. Dred Scott v. Sanford. D. Obergefell v. Hodges. Answer. B. Plessy v. Ferguson. Explanation. The Plessy v. Ferguson, 1896, decision upheld the constitutionality of racial segregation under the separate but equal doctrine. 3. In the Brown v. Board of Education, 1954, case, what did the Supreme Court rule regarding public school segregation? A. It was constitutional as long as schools were equally funded. B. It was unconstitutional because it violated the Equal Protection Clause. C. It was permissible under the separate but equal doctrine. D. It could only be challenged by private citizens. Answer. B. It was unconstitutional because it violated the Equal Protection Clause. Explanation. The Brown v. Board of Education decision ruled that state-sponsored school segregation was unconstitutional as it violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. 4. Which landmark case ruled that the right to an abortion was protected by the Constitution? A. Griswold v. Connecticut. B. Roe v. Wade. C. Planned Parenthood v. KCD. Obergefell v. Hodges. Answer. B. Roe v. Wade. Explanation. In Roe v. Wade, 1973, the Supreme Court recognized a woman's constitutional right to choose to have an abortion under the right to privacy. 5. What was the outcome of Gideon v. Wainwright, 1963? A. The right to a public defender is guaranteed in all cases. B. Criminal defendants must represent themselves if they choose. C. The right to counsel is not required in federal cases. D. Defendants cannot have a lawyer if they are charged with a felony. Answer. A. The right to a public defender is guaranteed in all cases. Explanation. The Gideon v. Wainwright decision ruled that the Sixth Amendment requires states to provide a public defender to defendants in criminal cases who cannot afford one. 6. What was the key issue in the Marbury v. Madison, 1803 case? A. Freedom of speech. B. Judicial review. C. Right to bear arms. D. Voting rights. Answer. B. Judicial review. Explanation. Marbury v. Madison established the principle of judicial review, affirming the Supreme Court's power to declare laws unconstitutional. 7. Which case declared that separate but equal facilities for African Americans were constitutional? A. Brown v. Board of Education. B. Plessy versus Ferguson. C. Dred Scott versus Sanford. D. Loving versus Virginia. Answer. B. Plessy versus Ferguson. Explanation. The Plessy versus Ferguson case, 1896, upheld segregation under the separate but equal doctrine, allowing racial segregation in public facilities. 8. Which case ruled that slavery was legal in the United States and that African Americans could not be citizens. A. Brown versus Board of Education. B. Plessy versus Ferguson. C. Dred Scott versus Sanford. D. Marbury versus Madison. Answer. C. Dred Scott versus Sanford. Explanation. The Dred Scott versus Sanford case, 1857, ruled that African Americans were not U.S. citizens and that slavery was legal in all territories. 9. In Roe v. Wade, 1973, the Supreme Court ruled that a woman's right to an abortion is protected by which amendment? A. First Amendment. B. Fourth Amendment. C. Fifth Amendment. D. 14th Amendment. Answer. D. 14th Amendment. Explanation. Roe v. Wade, 1973, ruled that the right to privacy, implied by the 14th Amendment, protects a woman's right to choose an abortion. 10. Which case established that school segregation was inherently unequal? A. Brown v. Board of Education. B. Plessy v. Ferguson. C. Marbury v. Madison. D. Gideon v. Wainwright. Answer. A. Brown v. Board of Education. Explanation. In Brown v. Board of Education, 1954, the court ruled that racial segregation in public schools violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. 11. In Miranda v. Arizona, 1966, what was established regarding the rights of the accused? A. The right to remain silent. B. The right to an attorney. C. The right to a speedy trial. D. The right to vote. Answer. A. The right to remain silent. Explanation. Miranda v. Arizona established that suspects must be informed of their rights, including the right to remain silent during an arrest. 12. What was the decision in Brown v. Board of Education? A. Public schools must integrate immediately. B. Separate but equal was constitutional. C. Segregation in schools was unconstitutional. D. Public schools can segregate by gender. Answer. C. Segregation in schools was unconstitutional. Explanation. The court ruled that racial segregation in public schools was unconstitutional because it violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. 13. In Gideon v. Wainwright, 1963, the court ruled that defendants in criminal cases have a right to what? A. Free healthcare. B. A public defender. C. A jury trial. D. Counsel from family members. Answer. B. A public defender. Explanation. The court ruled that the Sixth Amendment guarantees the right to counsel in criminal cases, and states must provide a lawyer if the defendant cannot afford one. 14. What did the Obergefell v. Hodges, 2015 case legalize? A. Same-sex marriage. B. Marijuana use. C. The death penalty. D. Voting age. Answer. A. Same-sex marriage. Explanation. Obergefell v. Hodges legalized same-sex marriage nationwide, ruling that the right to marry is guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. 15. What issue did the Tinker v. Des Moines 1969 case address? A. School prayer. B. Freedom of speech in schools. C. Teacher strikes. D. School segregation. Answer: B. Freedom of speech in schools. Explanation: the court ruled that students have the right to express themselves at school as long as it does not disrupt the educational environment. 16. In Citizens United v. FEC, 2010, what did the court rule regarding campaign financing? A. Corporations can donate to political campaigns. B. All campaign donations are unconstitutional. C. Only individuals can donate to campaigns. D. Political ads are illegal. Answer: A. Corporations can donate to political campaigns. Explanation: Citizens United v. FEC ruled that corporations and unions can spend unlimited amounts of money on political advertising under the First Amendment. 17. Which case established the doctrine of one person, one vote? A. Baker v. Carr. B. Gideon v. Wainwright. C. Marbury v. Madison. D. Miranda v. Arizona. Answer: A. Baker v. Carr. Explanation: the Baker v. Carr case, 1962, established that congressional districts must be roughly equal in population to ensure equal representation. 18. In Texas v. Johnson, 1989, what did the Supreme Court rule about flag burning? A. It is illegal in all circumstances. B. It is protected by the First Amendment. C. It is only legal during protests. D. It is a violation of public decency. Answer: B. It is protected by the First Amendment. Explanation: the court ruled that flag burning is a form of symbolic speech protected by the First Amendment. 19. Which case determined that the federal government has the power to regulate interstate commerce? A. McCulloch v. Maryland. B. Marbury v. Madison. C. Wickard v. Filburn. D. United States v. Lopez. Answer: A. McCulloch v. Maryland. Explanation: McCulloch v. Maryland, 1819, established that the federal government has implied powers, including the regulation of interstate commerce. 20. What was the ruling in Loving v. Virginia, 1967? A. State laws banning interracial marriage are unconstitutional. B. The death penalty is unconstitutional. C. Segregation in schools is unconstitutional. D. States cannot prohibit same-sex marriage. Answer: A. State laws banning interracial marriage are unconstitutional. Explanation: Loving v. Virginia ruled that laws banning interracial marriage violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. 21. In Mapp v. Ohio, 1961, the court ruled that evidence obtained through illegal searches is what? A. Admissible in court. B. Inadmissible in court. C. Only admissible in state cases. D. Only admissible if the defendant consents. Answer: B. Inadmissible in court. Explanation: the court ruled that evidence obtained through unlawful searches and seizures is inadmissible in state courts, establishing the exclusionary rule. 22. What was the key issue in Roper v. Simmons, 2005? A. The death penalty for minors. B. Freedom of speech. C. Same-sex marriage. D. School segregation. Answer: A. The death penalty for minors. Explanation: the court ruled that executing minors is unconstitutional under the Eighth Amendment's prohibition of cruel and unusual punishment. 23. Which case involved the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act? A. Brown v. Board of Education. B. Roe v. Wade. C. National Federation of Independent Business v. Sebelius. D. Obergefell v. Hodges. Answer: C. National Federation of Independent Business versus Sibelius. Explanation: National Federation of Independent Business versus Sibelius, 2012, upheld the individual mandate of the Affordable Care Act, ruling it a tax under Congress's taxing power. 24. What did the Supreme Court rule in Gonzalez versus Reich, 2005, regarding marijuana? A. Marijuana use is unconstitutional. B. The federal government can ban medical marijuana under the Commerce Clause. C. Medical marijuana is protected under the First Amendment. D. States can regulate marijuana without federal interference. Answer: B. The federal government can ban medical marijuana under the Commerce Clause. Explanation: The court ruled that the federal government can regulate marijuana, even for medical use, under the Commerce Clause. 25. What was the decision in Furman v. Georgia, 1972, regarding the death penalty? A. It was ruled unconstitutional in all cases. B. It was allowed for minors. C. It was unconstitutional as applied, but not abolished. D. It was mandated for all criminal cases. Answer: C. It was unconstitutional as applied, but not abolished. Explanation: The court ruled that the death penalty, as it was applied at the time, was arbitrary and violated the Eighth Amendment's prohibition of cruel and unusual punishment. 26. In New York Times Company v. United States, 1971, what did the Supreme Court rule regarding the First Amendment? A. It does not protect publishing classified information. B. It allows the government to censor press reports. C. It prohibits all government interference in the press. D. It protects the right to publish the Pentagon Papers. Answer: D. It protects the right to publish the Pentagon Papers. Explanation: The court ruled that the government could not prevent the publication of the Pentagon Papers, affirming the First Amendment's protection of press freedom. 27. What issue did Miller v. California, 1973, address? A. The legality of abortion. B. Obscenity and freedom of speech. C. Gun control laws. D. Voting rights for minorities. Answer: B. Obscenity and freedom of speech. Explanation: The Miller v. California case created the Miller test, which established criteria for determining whether material is obscene and not protected by the First Amendment. 28. In Epperson v. Arkansas, 1968, the Supreme Court ruled on the teaching of what subject in public schools? A. Evolution. B. Math. C. Literature.
D. Religion.
Answer: A. Evolution. Explanation: Epperson v. Arkansas ruled that laws banning the teaching of evolution in public schools violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. 29. Which case ruled that a law prohibiting same-sex marriage was unconstitutional? A. Obergefell v. Hodges. B. Brown v. Board of Education. C. Plessy v. Ferguson. D. Gideon v. Wainwright. Answer: A. Obergefell v. Hodges. Explanation: Obergefell v. Hodges, 2015, ruled that state bans on same-sex marriage were unconstitutional under the 14th Amendment. 30. What did the court decide in Shelby County v. Holder, 2013, about the Voting Rights Act? A. It upheld the act in its entirety. B. It struck down a key provision related to voter preclearance. C. It extended voting protections to all U.S. territories. D. It invalidated all voting rights protections. Answer: B. It struck down a key provision related to voter preclearance. Explanation: The court ruled that Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act, which required certain states to get federal approval before changing voting laws, was unconstitutional. 31. What was the ruling in Gibbons v. Ogden, 1824? A. Congress has the power to regulate interstate commerce. B. Slavery is legal in all states. C. The federal government cannot regulate commerce. D. States have the right to declare war. Answer. A. Congress has the power to regulate interstate commerce. Explanation. Gibbons v. Ogden, 1824, affirmed that Congress has the authority to regulate interstate commerce under the Commerce Clause. 32. In Griswold v. Connecticut, 1965, what right was protected by the Supreme Court? A. The right to free speech. B. The right to bear arms. C. The right to privacy. D. The right to an education. Answer. C. The right to privacy. Explanation. The court ruled that a state law banning contraceptives violated the right to privacy implied by the Bill of Rights. 33. Which case established that one man, one vote applies to both state and local districts? A. Baker v. Carr. B. Roe v. Wade. C. Gideon v. Wainwright. D. Miranda v. Arizona. Answer. A. Baker v. Carr. Explanation. Baker v. Carr, 1962, established that districts must be drawn to ensure that each person's vote has equal weight. 34. In Engel v. Vitale, 1962, what did the Supreme Court rule about school prayer? A. It is permissible for students to pray in school. B. School-sponsored prayer violates the First Amendment. C. Prayer is allowed only in high school. D. School-sponsored prayer is encouraged. Answer. B. School-sponsored prayer violates the First Amendment. Explanation. The court ruled that government-directed prayer in public schools violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. 35. What was the ruling in Burlington Industries Incorporated v. Ellerth, 1998? A. Employers can be liable for sexual harassment even if they were unaware. B. Employees must report sexual harassment immediately. C. Employers are not liable for harassment unless proven. D. Sexual harassment is not illegal in the workplace. Answer. A. Employers can be liable for sexual harassment even if they were unaware. Explanation. The court ruled that employers are liable for sexual harassment by supervisors if they fail to take appropriate action. 36. In United States v. Nixon, 1974, the Supreme Court ruled on the issue of what? A. Executive privilege and presidential power. B. Free speech protections. C. Voting rights. D. Gun control laws. Answer. A. Executive privilege and presidential power. Explanation. The court ruled that President Nixon must comply with a subpoena to turn over tapes, limiting the scope of executive privilege. 37. Which case established the exclusionary rule, which prevents illegally obtained evidence from being used in court? A. Gideon v. Wainwright. B. Mapp v. Ohio. C. Miranda v. Arizona. D. Tinker v. Des Moines. Answer. B. Mapp v. Ohio. Explanation. Mapp v. Ohio, 1961, established the exclusionary rule, which prohibits evidence obtained through illegal searches from being admitted in court. 38. What did the Supreme Court rule in Hernandez v. Texas, 1954? A. Mexican Americans were denied equal protection under the law. B. The death penalty is unconstitutional for minors. C. School segregation is unconstitutional. D. Same-sex marriage is legal. Answer: A. Mexican Americans were denied equal protection under the law. Explanation: the court ruled that the exclusion of Mexican Americans from juries violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. 39. In Korematsu v. United States, 1944, what did the Supreme Court rule regarding the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II? A. It was unconstitutional. B. It was a necessary wartime measure. C. It violated freedom of speech. D. It violated the right to privacy. Answer: B. It was a necessary wartime measure. Explanation: the court upheld the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, a decision later widely criticized and effectively overturned. 40. What was the decision in Lawrence v. Texas, 2003? A. Anti-sodomy laws are constitutional. B. The right to privacy protects consensual sexual conduct between adults. C. Same-sex marriage is illegal. D. The government can regulate sexual activity. Answer: B. The right to privacy protects consensual sexual conduct between adults. Explanation: Lawrence v. Texas ruled that laws criminalizing private, consensual sexual conduct between same-sex adults violate the right to privacy. 41. In TLO v. New Jersey, 1985, what did the court rule about searches in public schools? A. Students cannot be searched by school officials. B. School officials can search students with reasonable suspicion. C. Only law enforcement can search students. D. Schools must have a warrant to search students. Answer: B. School officials can search students with reasonable suspicion. Explanation: the court ruled that school officials have the right to search students if they have reasonable suspicion, balancing privacy with school safety. 42. What did Barron v. Baltimore, 1833, establish about the Bill of Rights? A. It applies to both state and federal governments. B. It only applies to the federal government. C. It does not protect individual rights. D. It is not enforceable by the courts. Answer: B. It only applies to the federal government. Explanation: the court ruled that the Bill of Rights applied only to the federal government and not to state governments. 43. Which case determined that the U.S. government could not regulate indecent speech on the Internet? A. Reno v. American Civil Liberties Union. B. New York Times Company v. United States. C. Miller v. California. D. Cohen v. California. Answer: A. Reno v. American Civil Liberties Union. Explanation: Reno v. ACLU 1997 struck down a law that attempted to regulate indecent content on the Internet, ruling that it violated the First Amendment. 44. What did the court decide in Bakke v. Regents of the University of California, 1978, regarding affirmative action? A. Affirmative action quotas are unconstitutional. B. Affirmative action is always unconstitutional. C. Racial quotas are permissible in college admissions. D. Affirmative action is unconstitutional in all forms. Answer: A. Affirmative action quotas are unconstitutional. Explanation: the court ruled that racial quotas in college admissions are unconstitutional, but race can be considered as one of the factors. 45. In Rumsfeld v. Forum for Academic and Institutional Rights, 2006, the court ruled on which issue? A. The constitutionality of the don't ask, don't tell policy. B. Free speech on college campuses. C. The right to bear arms. D. The use of military recruiters at universities. Answer: D. The use of military recruiters at universities. Explanation: the court ruled that universities could not block military recruiters on their campuses, despite opposition to the military's policy on gay service members. 46. What did West Virginia State Board of Education versus Barnett, 1943, establish about student rights? A. Students can be forced to salute the flag. B. Students cannot be required to salute the flag if it violates their beliefs. C. Students cannot wear religious symbols in school. D. School officials can regulate student speech. Answer: B. Students cannot be required to salute the flag if it violates their beliefs. Explanation: the court ruled that students cannot be forced to salute the flag if it violates their personal beliefs, protecting free speech and religious freedom. 47. What was the decision in McDonald v. Chicago, 2010, regarding the Second Amendment? A. The Second Amendment does not apply to the states. B. The Second Amendment applies to the states, protecting the right to own firearms. C. States can ban all firearms. D. Only the federal government can regulate firearms. Answer: B. The Second Amendment applies to the states, protecting the right to own firearms. Explanation: McDonald v. Chicago ruled that the Second Amendment applies to state and local governments through the 14th Amendment's incorporation doctrine. 48. In Fisher v. University of Texas, 2016, the court upheld which practice in university admissions? A. Racial quotas. B. Affirmative action. C. Racially segregated universities. D. Mandatory standardized testing. Answer: B. Affirmative action. Explanation: the court upheld the use of affirmative action in university admissions, ruling that race can be considered as one of the factors in creating a diverse student body. 49. What did Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010, rule regarding campaign finance? A. Corporations can be banned from donating to political campaigns. B. Corporations and unions can spend unlimited amounts of money on political ads. C. All political donations are unconstitutional. D. Only individual citizens can donate to political campaigns. Answer: B. Corporations and unions can spend unlimited amounts of money on political ads. Explanation: Citizens United ruled that restrictions on independent political expenditures by corporations and unions violated the First Amendment's protection of free speech. 50. What was the Supreme Court's ruling in Brown v. Board of Education, 1954, regarding school segregation? A. Segregation in public schools is unconstitutional. B. Segregation is allowed as long as facilities are equal. C. States can determine their own rules about segregation. D. School segregation is legal only in southern states. Answer: A. Segregation in public schools is unconstitutional. Explanation: Brown v. Board of Education ruled that racial segregation in public schools violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. 51. What was the ruling in Roe v. Wade, 1973, regarding abortion rights? A. Abortion is illegal in all states. B. Women have the right to an abortion under the right to privacy. C. States can ban abortion after the first trimester. D. Only the federal government can regulate abortion. Answer: B. Women have the right to an abortion under the right to privacy. Explanation: the court ruled that a woman's right to choose an abortion is protected by the right to privacy under the 14th Amendment. 52. In Miranda v. Arizona, 1966, what did the court establish regarding police interrogations? A. Police must inform suspects of their right to remain silent and to an attorney. B. Suspects can be forced to answer police questions. C. Police can interrogate suspects without notifying them of their rights. D. Police cannot use any evidence obtained from interrogations. Answer: A. Police must inform suspects of their right to remain silent and to an attorney. Explanation: the Miranda ruling established that suspects must be informed of their rights before being questioned by police. 53. What did the Supreme Court rule in Gideon v. Wainwright, 1963, about legal representation? A. Defendants in criminal cases do not have the right to an attorney. B. Defendants must pay for their own attorney. C. Defendants in felony cases have the right to a court-appointed attorney. D. Defendants can waive their right to an attorney in any criminal case. Answer: C. Defendants in felony cases have the right to a court-appointed attorney. Explanation: the court ruled that the Sixth Amendment guarantees the right to an attorney in state felony cases. 54. In Katz v. United States, 1967, what did the court rule regarding wiretapping? A. Wiretapping without a warrant is permissible. B. Wiretapping is only illegal when done by foreign governments. C. Wiretapping violates the Fourth Amendment if done without a warrant. D. Wiretapping is allowed only in national security cases. Answer: C. Wiretapping violates the Fourth Amendment if done without a warrant. Explanation: the court ruled that wiretapping without a warrant violated the Fourth Amendment's protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. 55. In Lemon v. Kurtzman, 1971, the Supreme Court established what test to determine violations of the Establishment Clause? A. The Equal Protection Test. B. The Lemon Test. C. The Free Speech Test. D. The Privacy Test. Answer: B. The Lemon Test. Explanation: the Lemon Test established that for a law to be constitutional under the Establishment Clause, it must have a secular purpose, not advance or inhibit religion, and avoid excessive government entanglement with religion. 56. In Schmerber v. California, 1966, the Supreme Court ruled on what issue regarding criminal procedure? A. The right to remain silent during interrogation. B. The constitutionality of involuntary confessions. C. The right to a speedy trial. D. The legality of blood alcohol tests without a warrant. Answer: D. The legality of blood alcohol tests without a warrant. Explanation: the court ruled that a blood alcohol test is permissible without a warrant if there is a risk that evidence might be destroyed, balancing law enforcement needs with Fourth Amendment rights. 57. In Citizens United v. FEC, 2010, what did the Supreme Court rule regarding campaign finance? A. Corporations cannot donate to political campaigns. B. Corporations and unions can spend unlimited money on independent political ads. C. Individuals can only donate $1,000 to political campaigns. D. Political ads must be limited to prevent corruption. Answer: B. Corporations and unions can spend unlimited money on independent political ads. Explanation: the court ruled that corporate and union spending on independent political ads is protected under the First Amendment's Free Speech Clause. 58. In Tennessee v. Garner, 1985, the court ruled on what aspect of law enforcement practices? A. The use of deadly force by police to apprehend a fleeing suspect. B. The requirement for a search warrant before entering a home. C. The constitutionality of stop-and-frisk searches. D. The right to confront witnesses in court. Answer: A. The use of deadly force by police to apprehend a fleeing suspect. Explanation: the court ruled that police may not use deadly force to apprehend a fleeing suspect unless the suspect poses a significant threat to officers or others. 59. In New York Times Company v. United States, 1971. What was the issue regarding freedom of the press? A. Whether the government can censor wartime information. B. Whether newspapers can publish defamatory material. C. Whether news outlets can be sued for publishing false information. D. Whether individuals can post online without censorship. Answer: A. Whether the government can censor wartime information. Explanation: the court ruled that the government could not prevent the New York Times from publishing the Pentagon Papers, affirming the press's right to publish information of public concern. 60. What did the court decide in Plessy v. Ferguson, 1896, regarding racial segregation? A. Segregation is unconstitutional. B. Segregation is permissible as long as facilities are separate but equal. C. Segregation is only allowed in public transportation. D. Racial discrimination is allowed in private businesses. Answer: B. Segregation is permissible as long as facilities are separate but equal. Explanation: Plessy v. Ferguson upheld the constitutionality of racial segregation under the separate but equal doctrine, which was later overturned by Brown v. Board of Education.